And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Tuesday morning's flying weather, showing pretty good band of IFR here from the west central Aleutians, north-northeast, and then east-northeast here, right across St. Matthew Island, on up to St. Lawrence Island here, into the Yukon Delta coast, and along and south of the Western Brooks Range. And southwest downsloping winds, VFR for the north slope, at least the central and eastern north slope and Arctic coast. And then good VFR, Bristol Bay, eastward here across southern Alaska, northward up to the Yukon Flats. All of the Gulf of Alaska and Panhandle looking good tomorrow morning. That lasts into the afternoon as well. Got IFR now into the Koyukuk Valley, westward there to Kotzebue along the northwest coast, down to St. Lawrence Island, Norton Sound area. Then marginal VFR here, Yukon Delta, and then the coastal areas of the Kuskokwim Delta. Some marginal VFR possible tomorrow afternoon into Togiak Bay, the Alaska Peninsula, and Kodiak Island, though, and southern Alaska on up into the Tanana Valley, staying VFR all the way down across the southeast coast. And then area of IFR out here over the mostly Adak to Atka, specifically Atka, kind of north-northwest there, staying well west of the Pribilofs. And that kind of shifts eastward a little bit, especially down here to the south of some IFR reaching Nikolsky Wednesday morning. And another zone of IFR up over the northern Bering Sea. And then a narrow band now of marginal VFR or areas of here in the central interior up to the Yukon Flats, maybe some IFR there. Over toward the border, marginal VFR for the Arctic coast, and mostly VFR, southern Alaska again. In fact, if you're east and south of the Alaska Range, it will be VFR into Bristol Bay, Kodiak Island, right on down again across the Panhandle. That holds through the afternoon as well, just about all of interior Alaska now, all the way up to the Arctic coast, VFR, lingering but diminishing. Marginal VFR for the southern slopes of the Western Brooks Range to Kivalina up to about Point Hope, Cape Lisburne. South of that, though, VFR until you get out to the Yukon Delta coast, and you pick up some marginal conditions there. But Bristol Bay looking really good. All of the remainder of the state here good, even into the Northeast Pacific. VFR, and a narrow band of IFR here, St. Lawrence Island, actually the Bering Strait, southward, now into the Pribilofs to Atka Island, and into the eastern Aleutians, breaking out to VFR to the west of that. Passes Anatuvik and Adigan, occasional marginal VFR throughout the day on Tuesday, but the remainder of the passes all VFR for the Alaska Range, Western Alaska Range, Lake Clark, Merrill, another VFR day for rainy and windy as well. VFR, Isabel, Eastern Alaska Range, all passes open tomorrow on either entrances. Tanita, VFR, Portage, VFR, and Chilcoot and White, good VFR. Freezing levels, southerly flow here, this warmer ridge coming in with that front pushing eastward. So we got 2,000 feet now all the way up to the north slope. 8,000 feet over Bristol Bay, the cold air here over the eastern interior, and definitely the Yukon down across the Panhandle, and see the surface here all the way down into Dixon Entrance there for the southeast coast, and about 6,000 feet or so there for the Aleutians. Icing, not much going on icing-wise. You may get some isolated moderate rime icing possible here for the eastern Aleutians tomorrow, the system to the south, and even less of a threat here for Adak, Shimei, and Attu in those areas. Otherwise, that's about it icing-wise. Nothing of any significance anywhere else. And for the jet stream, westerly flow here at 33,000 feet across the northern part of the state, up to 125 knots. Then got this northeast wind up to 95 to 105 knots across the southern southeast coast. Ridging right through here for a lighter wind. South wind's 115 knots, trying to get up to the Alaska Peninsula, but not quite making it. And taking a look at 3,000 feet. Low pressure way out there to the west. Southerly winds, 45 knots over the western Bering Sea. Lighter for the Aleutians here, although southeast 40 knots approaching the Fox Islands and Alaska Peninsula. High pressure, light winds across southern Alaska into the Gulf. North side of that system, though, or the ridge, 45 to 50 knot west-northwesterlies, especially along the North Slope Arctic coast and a little bit into the eastern Brooks Range there. Northerlies, but not all that strong for the Panhandle. 3,000 feet here. Lighter winds now for the southeast coast at 3,000 feet. West 40 knots. North Slope Arctic coast, light in the interior. And southeast winds at about 40 knots here. 40 to 50 knots coming across the Alaska Peninsula and eastern Aleutians. Taking a look at turbulence with that southeast wind. Considerable moderate turbulence here for the, Unalaska Island, Alaska Peninsula, maybe some isolated moderate out there over the western Aleutians. And the North Slope Arctic coast, especially the Arctic coast, on the east side there could get a little bumpy, as well as around the Yukon Flats there. And the southern Panhandle, light to isolated turbulence as well, with the heavier stuff now on down into southern British Columbia and Vancouver Island.